Today you have been invited to the European Parliament by the European Conservatives and Reformists group. You were invited to present your research on the Smolensk plane crash as independent experts who decided to look into this case. Now, the Smolensk plane crash, as we all know, is very controversial, especially in Poland. There hasn't been a day during these 5 years since the crash without a Smolensk story in the press. Black boxes and the wreckage are still in Poland, and more questions have arisen than answers have actually been provided. Gentlemen, how have you got involved in the investigation of the Smolensk plane crash? Mr. Jørgensen, if you could tell us how you got involved.
Yes, I can. I'm a mechanical engineer. I have a big customer in Norway within the oil business. And within this company, there's a Polish colleague. And he approached me many times at lunch breaks and tried to explain about this because he knows I have an aerodynamic background. And I got tired of this, what I thought was the conspiration theory at the beginning, and got hold of some data from the MAC report itself and the black box data that follow this, and started to do my calculations because I wanted to prove to him that the Russian story could agree what I thought at this time with the data. But
so you first believed there was a conspiracy theory,
yes,
and you wanted to prove that the conspiracy theories were false and that everything in the report would fit nicely.
Yes, this is true.
But did it?
No, it didn't. And the more I dug into this, the clearer it has been for me that he was right and I was wrong.
And how long have you been studying this case?
Yes, I have worked on this case for 3 years now, spent around 1,200 hours. I worked together with Boeing sub-supplier, with experts within their field of CFD. These are like advanced calculations, flow calculations, lift calculations. How does this plane perform in circumstances like cutting a wing? And this has led me to the conclusions I presented today, which are very clear.
Do you have any expertise and background in aviation?
Yes, I am a pilot since I was 17. This is not jet engine expertise. This is like a single engine land-based air aviation. Yes.
Dr. Gajewski, if you could briefly introduce yourself, what is your background, academic background, and how did you get involved in this investigation?
Okay, it started shortly after my graduation from university. I joined a group which was dealing with aviation being used in agriculture. So my PhD thesis was about using small planes and helicopters in agriculture, that time on a big cooperative farms. And after immigration to Canada, I joined Transport Canada as a senior corrective action engineer. Went through a number of briefings and different lessons which I learned, because the thing is that our speciality, it's very narrow in terms of profile of work. So for a whole Canada, it's about 30 people. Okay, so it's required a special training because we were acting as a government officials, acting on safety issues. So we were forcing private industry to follow our rules. In order to impose any rules on private sector, you need to know really what happened during accident in order to correct wrongdoing or whatever happens after that. So my role was to investigate independently of Transportation Safety Board all accidents or in cooperation with them or accept their investigation. And later on, my role was to introduce corrective action. So that's my expertise in this regard. And regarding small accident, at first, because I spent 25 years with Canadian government, I was trusting officials from Russia for work they were doing. I was asking friends of mine saying, hey, do not jump into any of conclusion regarding this accident. Do not prejudge any things. Just wait for a final report to be published, and then we can discuss things. And I was waiting for a final report. I did nothing before that. And when final report was published, I realized that this is not what we expected.
So is the Russian and the Polish governmental report investigations plausible? Credible?
Actually, as I presented today in European Parliament, it's not.
It's not?
Absolutely not.
How about the Polish one?
Same.
Same.
Even worse, I would say.
And can we speak of an actual investigation taking place? Dr. Gajewski?
Excuse me, could you repeat the question?
Can we actually say that an investigation took place?
By the Russians.
By the Russians.
It's very difficult to give a straight answer to that, because we see elements of proper investigation and we see elements of purposely falsifying investigation. So in a total, it's unacceptable practice.
A mixture of cover-up and investigation, yes.
And on what kind of documentation and materials did you base your research? Black boxes, wreckage, they're still in Russian hands today. So this brings a lot of questions into the Polish investigation itself, conducting an investigation without the black boxes and the wreckage. So how did you manage? And if you could tell us on what documentation did you base your research?
Yes, the first part of my research I based on data available about general data available for this Tupolev plane, and worked my way backwards from the crash site, because there's one thing we know for certain, and this is, where did this plane crash? Working backwards from this crash site with the well-known data of this Tupolev brings us to a height above the birch tree area, around 30 meters or even up to 55 meters. If we take a look at the trajectory the pilots were approaching by, according to the GPS data we have from the American black box, this fits perfectly with the calculated value. So these two meet. If we work backwards from the crash site or look at the trajectory the pilots were approaching and doing a go-around, they fit perfectly.
Okay. And what did you base your research on? Is it the same material as Mr. Glenn Jørgensen?
No, actually not. My basic material was just Russian report and the Polish report, and some information being given up after that. For example, Polish report states that aircraft was refurbished or rebuilt on a 6th of April, when the number of seats increased from 90 seats to 100 seats. And the number of passengers were 88. It means that there were 12 empty seats in this aircraft. About a year after, or maybe two, it was an official report by Auditor General, Polish Auditor General, which is a governmental body, and statement was placed in this report saying that one of the bodyguards of one of generals was not able to join the team because there were no, as report says, no seats available for him.
Okay.
So it begs a question why he was not allowed on this aircraft when 12 seats were still empty.
And what conclusions did you come up to?
Conclusions. Okay, it's very obvious that investigating team did not research things they supposed to do from the beginning. One of the questions was about why they allowed number of generals being in the same aircraft.
Yes, because we have to remind everybody that it was not only the Polish president, chief of the armed forces, but also the entire General Army Command, from Navy special forces, etc.
Yeah, and people were asking me why a lot of these officials were in the same aircraft, and I'm saying I'm not able to answer this question, but that's the question which investigating teams supposed to be looking at, but they didn't. So that's the one of the items which were on my list to look at.
So what were the causes of the crash?
I don't know.
We can see from the much of my work is also based on the official data from the MAC report, the black box data we have there, combined with the advanced simulation or CFD work done by Boeing sub-supplier in the States. And from this we can see that the plane was in the clear airspace when it lost the wingtip. This is a fact. There were no obstacles. It was at least 30 meters above the ground. It lost its wingtip. We know from the history of Tupolevs that there has never been reported any such case where a Tupolev has lost unmotivated a wingtip under these circumstances, even if very rough weather. So, to me, this is can only be explained in one way: that there was an explosion inside, taking off the wingtip. I can, as engineer.
This is your conclusion?
This is my conclusion, yes. This is not only my conclusion.
Not only your conclusion?
No, this is a conclusion that is in agreement with the work of many others, including Professor Wisław Binienda, who has shown that the birch tree that is claimed to cut these 5.5 meters of the left wingtip cannot cut through the wing. The birch tree had to be at least 4 times stronger.
So the plane lost its wing at a height of 30 meters?
Higher than 30 meters, probably even 50 meters.
Now, apparently there was FMS system data that froze or lost power.
Yes.
At what height was this?
15 meters as per Russian report. I don't know what was the height originally, but as Russian they put in their report, it was 15 meters with speed of 270 kilometers per hour.
So if I understand correctly from the Russian report says that the plane descended too low to a height of 5 meters, hit the tree and lost its wing.
Yes.
However, you say that it lost its wing at a height of 30 meters,
yes,
and at a height of 15 meters, the FMS system lost power.
Yeah.
Yes, and the data tie together. If we look at the trajectory of this plane, according to the aerodynamics, we will be passing through this point captured by the FMS system at 15 meters height, 70 meters before the plane crashed. So this is not in conflict with what I'm saying.
So,
and let me just say one more thing about the official version, because they are claiming that the plane hit this birch tree 5 meter height, about 340 meters from where it crashed. Mm-hmm. But you can show it's impossible for this plane to rotate with the speed that we have from the black box, according to the black box, and make it to the crash site at the same time.
Dr. Gajewski, do you agree with the conclusion of Mr. Glenn Jørgensen?
Oh, yes. Yes. Because, first of all, we had a number of different approaches, if you wish, or scenarios. And at the end of the day, we have to agree with some of scenarios which will be more real than whatever is being told by officials. So, looks like an aircraft was disintegrating during flight to start with, because we know of that. Unfortunately, Russians and Poles, investigators, they never explored the possibility of uncontrolled flight into terrain. It means situation when pilot is losing control over the aircraft, different reasons, and one of them could be explosion or could be just losing aircraft parts vital to flight.
Exactly, because we speak of explosions, but perhaps it could have been just as much a mechanical error, no?
This is a question you have to look into, because this is what some people could claim. But if you look at the way the cut was done, we can exclude this cut being done by fatigue or some mechanical failure of the wing, because it's crossing several ribs, and the cut would be in a different angle. If it was cut by the birch tree, it would be in the direction of the flight. but we can see that the wingtip is cut 20 degrees compared to the direction of the plane flying. And this you can show from the engineer. If you look closely at how can you implement the explosives into the wing, this is the only way it can be done. It's 20 degrees angle.
So one explosion and that's it?
No, 2 explosions. So let me just very briefly for the viewers explain how the analysis, how the data are showing what happened.
So let's from the beginning.
Yes, from the very beginning.
We have a plane
Yes.
coming down. I understand from the Russian and the Polish report, this is in the official versions. The control tower in Smolensk was directing the plane from the beginning at an erroneous glide path and descent path. So we have a flight crew that's approaching to land, but they did not. Did they perform a landing operation?
They were approaching, and to my opinion as a pilot, they were approaching in the correct way because they knew there was the local fog around the Smolensk airfield. Mm-hmm. The captain, by his communication with the yak pilot who landed 40 minutes earlier, clearly stated that he would give this one go. They would probably not manage to land, and he would take off for the alternative aerodrome.
Which would be a go-around maneuver.
A go-around maneuver, exactly. And he's following the right path because he's being cautious. He's going by a high path downwards, and he's aiming for this 100 meter, around 100 meter at the decision height. Now, what is the decision height? This is the height of the
100
pilot.
meters?
Between 70 and 100 meters, yes. The decision height of Smolensk is 72 meters. What is decision height? This is the height where the pilot has to decide, his final height, where he has to decide, will I land? And the decision is based on, can he see the landing field or not? In this case, he could not see the landing field. He said, I will do go around. And
yes, he gave out the command to go around.
Yes.
And we know this from governmental Russian and Polish reports.
Exactly. And according to the data, they actually initiated this go around.
So at what height was this go-around maneuver initiated?
The height entering the middle marker, which is this decision zone,
yes,
was around, according to these calculations, around 75 meters.
Okay.
And it takes about 20 to 25 meters height to do a go-around maneuver. So exiting this middle marker zone, the plane would be about 50 meters height.
So what happened then? Because the plane didn't pull up.
The plane started pull up. We can see from the black box data that the
Yes.
plane was accelerating upwards with 1.3 G. This means that it was clearly going up. At this point, the wingtip was lost. We can see the change in the signals captured by the black boxes, that there was a wing loss that corresponds to this wingtip. Okay, the plane makes a small change in its upwards velocity from not 6 meters per second to about 4 meters per second. Then, about 100 meters further, we see again, and this is not described in the official report, the curves are showed there, but they are not mentioning what caused this. Again, an even bigger wing part is lost, corresponds to the next section we can see in tiny small pieces. And now the plane is uncontrollable for the pilots. So we have from here an uncontrollable hitting the aircraft, hitting the terrain ahead, turning around and hitting. Yes.
Do you agree with? Did you come to the same conclusions?
I'm not familiar with each detail of this, theory, but at the end of the day, I'm agreeing with the main aspect of it, because it's clear that aircraft has disintegrated during flight, and the only possibility on this height was an explosion. Okay, because tree itself could not cause such a damage that pilot would lost control of an aircraft. It's next to impossible.
Okay.
If people go to the Google Maps, write Smolensk, take a close view of this field around the airfield, the area there, they will see 3 distinct patterns of damaged grass. This photo that's on Google Maps is taken the 25th of June. This is like 2 months later. This damaged grass, the patterns of this fit very closely with the hypothesis given forward and the aerodynamic I just described here. What also fits is the final velocity towards the ground. The plane measured its final velocity, the speed towards the vertical speed towards the ground was about 22 meters per second. This is what theory tells us. It fits with the fact that the Taus 38 was initiated when the plane was rolled more than 90 degrees. It fits with the fact that we found, or people have found, parts of the plane before the birch tree, which would be impossible if it was the birch tree that caused all this. So there are very many pieces of this puzzle that all tie together for this, and many of these are not from my work. These are from many investigators, where we are sharing information through Mesarevich, collecting and providing. And all this is tying up to one clear picture now. There can be the small details that we can discuss still, but like the losing of the wing in several explosions and the fuselage exploding are very significant, and much is pointing in this direction.
So why is this version not as popular or as common with the Russian and Polish governmental reports? Is it hard to break through mainstream with your research and
Totally impossible. In Poland, I have, as the independent Danish investigator, it's impossible to get into the mainstream media. They will try and make fun of this work. They will try and push this aside. It's the only place I have been allowed in Poland is through TV Republika, and then through the radios.
So independent media.
Independent media, yes. And then, of course, I will go to any place where they will take the time and listen and gather people. I will gladly come and present work from all the independent investigators, gather a presentation and convince people. And this is the way forward.
Mr. Dr. Gajewski, could you tell us a bit? I would like to. We've talked about a little bit of the technical aspects, a little bit about your research, but now I would like to come back a little bit to the investigation and the little nuances that occurred. Among others, which legal basis was chosen for the investigation, how the Polish and Russian investigation actually took place, something maybe about the burials afterwards. Dr. Gajewski, what was the basis, the legal basis for the Polish and Russian investigation?
Okay, the legal basis were Annex 13 to ICAO regulations regarding crash investigation. The thing is that in any given country, it's up to the local authority to conduct investigation. There is no such a mandatory requirement to stick to ICAO regulations. Okay, ICAO regulations mostly it's an advisory material, so it's up to a local government to exercise own right to stick with these regulations or not. That's the one thing. Second thing is that if in any given country a local authority feels that they are not up to the task to conduct the throughout investigation, then they can ask another country, another authority to help them out. Okay, so for example, in Canada, very often we were asked by different countries to help them with investigation in their cases, and the same with NTSB in United States of America.
So there was a possibility to have other bodies involved in this investigation?
Right from the start.
Which ones, for example?
Okay, which ones, for example? First, I would explore NTSB of United States because of avionics, which were American-made. So that's the one thing for sure I will be looking at. Secondly, of course, with Russians, because they build the fuselage and engines, and of course part of avionics as well. But on the top of it, I would look for some experienced independent body to look into this investigation, because the Polish side did not have experience investigating big body aircraft crashes. Russians, you can claim that they had this investigation done, but according to statistics being published by them, most of accidents in Russia happened because of pilot's error.
Well, this is according to the Russian Aviation Interstate.
Exactly. And that's the problem, because if that's the case, it means that Russia has a very poor record of training pilots. It means that corrective action would be better training for the pilots, but they never did. So there's a huge discrepancy here, because if they found the cause of accident as a pilot error, they're supposed to train the pilot, but they never did. Okay, so that's the level of perceiving the problems for Russians. And the second thing is that having this problem in hand, Russians having this aircraft with president on board on their soil, it will be much easier for them to ask Brits or French investigators to look into this case, saying, hey, we don't want to be blamed for anything, for wrongdoing on our side, and let's Brits or French investigators carrying on investigation. So after all, nobody will blame us Russians for wrongdoing. But they never did it, so that's what happened.
We also see the Polish government obstructing the independent investigations and the official investigations also. First of all, by letting the whole investigation in the hands of Mr. Putin, instead of having active Polish involvement on an equal level with the full access of all data. This should be clear for anybody that it's very uneven. The second thing is...
So by choosing the Chicago Convention, the Polish authorities decided to give the investigation away to the
But they
Russians.
didn't have to, because the Chicago Convention, Appendix 13, is describing a scenario where the different bodies are working together on this. They are not describing that the whole investigation should be left in the hands of the country where this happens. Not at all. This is not the intention in these writings. This is that we put together the best people who can crack what happened here. And this is clearly not the case. And we've also seen the Polish government obstruct the possibility to get the information that was right at the hand from the TAUS, the American black box, sent to General Avionics. They only selected the data they want to show and not giving the full amount, which could help very much in these investigations.
Now, I'm sure you are very much aware of how the investigation took place. Dr. Gajewski, you are a member of the International Society of Air Safety Investigators. How, according to your standards and your experience, has this investigation been taken place?
I'll be only guessing in this case, but looks like that they employed, Russian side and the Polish side, they employed a lot of good people. I would say people who are capable of doing a lot of things. So it would be the question of management, how to manage these people to get the best results out of it, to start with. But secondly, I see a lot of political influence after their work was done. So it could be the case when good engineers were doing a really good job, but later on it was already being transformed for more political accepted outfit. So.
But was the evidence, maybe the bodies of the victims, were they investigated in any way? Were they properly handled? Was the crash scene secured?
No, not at all. I would put it even further than Bogdan is mentioning here, because there seems to be the involvement from the first minute, and even before this, to have a cover-up of what happened here. And you see, as mentioned today, the crash site was not secured, the bodies were not examined. There's a clear prescription of how to go forward in such case here, and X-ray is mandatory for excluding the possibility of explosions. And none of this was done. you can mention 100 items here where they were not doing the right work. If I keep in my field, is aerodynamics, they didn't even put one single line of aerodynamic work into this report. I mean, they're stating that the pilots make a sudden maneuver diving towards the ground, but they are not backing this up with any aerodynamic calculations and evidence showing that their hypothesis could be correct. This is not worth the paper it's written on, according to me.
Dr. Gajewski, how about the Polish official governmental investigation team? Was that team set up according to Polish law?
It's difficult for me to judge this issue because it's up to the Polish government to act as they see in the best interest of Polish people. But thing is that I was surprised that in a Polish report, the same as in a Russian report, a lot of space was taken for describing the psychological profile of the pilots, and at length they're describing, the previous flights with a lot of details. It's completely useless in this case because the thing is, to the last minute, everything was all right. Okay, it was nothing wrong with the pilot. It was nothing wrong with an aircraft. So when they were approaching Smolensk, let's say 5 minutes before they crashed, everything was in a good order.
Now, I'll say this from myself because I know from Polish media that on the 5th of December 2012, Polish military prosecutors admitted in Polish Parliament during a sitting of the Special Justice Committee seating, they admitted to Polish members of Parliament that Polish detectors traced TNT
Yes.
on the wreckage of the plane in Smolensk.
Yes, 700 samples, and they were brought to Poland for further investigation. And they put together this investigation in such manner, which is totally unacceptable, seen from a laboratory standpoint, that they used up all the material, and they set up the scenario such that all these 700 samples that were found positive at the crash site,
Nitro compounds, oxygen,
yes,
hexagon.
that they were found without explosives when doing these 4 tests. And there has been the analysis of this showing that this was done in the improper way. And now all the test material is used up. Of course, this was not brought directly from, we have to remember this is an important point, because what happened was that the 700 samples were taken with this high and state-of-the-art sniffer device, and this has a normal false rate about 2%. Here you get 700 positive samples, but are not allowed to bring them directly back to Poland, of course. They are staying in Moscow for 3 months and then sent to Poland for investigation. And none of them showed why the Polish showed the trace of explosives.
Well, yes, because we have to remember that's all with the black boxes and the wreckage still in Poland, still in
in
Russia,
Russia,
excuse
yes.
me, yes, still in Russian hands. Polish authorities are only able to conduct their investigation on the copies provided by the Russian authorities themselves.
Yes.
Are the Russian copies credible?
No, I listened together with there was the person who had the presentation at the Smolensk conference in October last year about the radio communication between the cockpit and the tower. And I had the chance to listen together with her on this, and this is like clear voice when they are over Minsk. You hear the 3 cockpits, the 2 pilots and the cockpit microphone are loud and clear. You can distinguish exactly who's in the cockpit, what are they talking about, who is talking. Then, a few minutes later, approaching Smolensk, all the amplitudes on the power spectrum are like a third. Everything is like mumble, mumble, mumble. And it shows the clear signs of being cut. You see the spectrums, you see the frequencies that jump all of a sudden. Clear signs of manipulation in this, so I wouldn't trust this at all.
Now, I'm sure that you know that many families and relatives still have unanswered questions. Now, families are unable to ask for exhumations of the bodies. Now, it's very important to point this out because the coffins of the victims have been sealed in Russia.
Yes.
And never allowed to be opened in Poland.
Yes, and this is big disgrace. I asked the 4 questions for Mr. Donald Tusk, because he was the Prime Minister. He is now the European President. I asked the 4 questions, and one of these questions was why did Tusk forbid the families to open the coffins and make the correct medical examinations that they should have been performed according to the Polish law. But the families were not allowed to do this, and still today, the families, the authorities are very reluctant to give the permission to do these exhumations, and all the exhumations have actually shown irregularities, like the people who were buried here were not the people, were not
Yes.
the
Yes, we have to point this out. 9 exhumations have taken place at the own initiative of the Polish prosecution, refusing such requests to family members. But there have been, during these 9 exhumations, there have been 6 bodies buried in the wrong grave, with 1 body still missing, despite this 1 body being identified by the relatives in Moscow.
And for the listeners, in these coffins, in some of the coffins were like cigarette butts and branches poured in together with the body. Yes.
So coffins sealed in Russia, sent to Poland, buried,
yes,
and never opened after that.
And then the 6 that were opened, amongst one of these, out fell from this body aluminum rivet. And this, by experts, is a clear sign of explosion, because at explosion you will have the rivets will be pulled out and like projectiles from the gun, and can end up anywhere, and some of them can end up in the body, and therefore you have to do the X-ray. None of these X-rays were done in Moscow.
Now, it's been officially confirmed, and there have been statements made by Government Protection Bureau of receiving a terrorist alert threat on the 9th of April 2010. Do you believe that, taking into consideration this threat, the Polish authorities should have tightened the security, or perhaps even maybe cancelled the flight?
It's not even as you explain here, it's much worse, because what happened was there was the warning from Interpol, as you are describing, on the 9th. On top of this, the area around the president's plane, which is being logged, who is going in and out, and you use the card to go in, this logging system was taken out of order, so nobody knows who was near this plane. We know that from 1:30 a.m. in the morning before the flight to 4 o'clock, there was a service team working on this plane. We don't know who was near this. We have this Interpol warning, and still when the president arrives, they're telling this president, please, jump into this plane. We don't know who was nearby this plane, but fly anyway.
Now, another very interesting trivia to this case is, even if the plane did succeed landing, we all know that, of course, the airport lacked transportation. So if the pilots did succeed to land, the passengers would step out of the plane, onto the tarmac of the airport, look around, and of course see that there is no transportation for them to take them from the airport to the Katyn Memorial Site.
Yes, this is true.
Yes.
And the Russians are claiming in this that this Ilyushin plane that tried to land 2 times had some cars, but this is very, very unlikely.
Yes, this is a EU-76.
Yes.
This is a plane that more or less an hour before the Smolensk approach tried to land, but ultimately pulled up and did not land. So taking into consideration that a plane where we suppose transport was for the delegation did not land, we still have green light for the Polish plane.
Yes, but he tried actually twice, and the 15 minutes before the president's plane came was the last time. At this point, he was so close to the runway, he could have chosen to land if he wanted to. So it was obvious that the plan was never to land with this Ilyushin.
Now, to finish, I understand every year in Poland there's a conference organized. This conference is organized by
Professor Witakowski.
Professor Witakowski. And I understand, could you tell us a little bit about these conferences? I understand there have been 3 that have taken place.
Yeah.
The first one in 2011?
Yes, that's correct. There were 3 conferences. I managed to take part in a second and a third one. And I think these conferences are pretty good. Thing only is that...
How many experts take part in this?
Oh, it's over 100 experts, yeah, altogether.
Did Mr. Glenn Jørgensen, do you participate in these conferences?
I have, like Bogdan, been at 2 conferences. And
so we speak about 100 of experts, different wider fields and specializations coming together, exchanging information, and coming to the same conclusion and agreement, right?
Yes. This is like puzzle that is falling in place, and it's very... encouraging is not the right word, but I mean it's very, you see people you've never met before present hardcore data, things that they are experts on, and it fits perfectly with the picture that is being presented by Masarevic today.
Yeah, it's important to mention here that, as Glenn just said, that we never met before. It was first time then a Smolensk accident which brought us together. So it's really very unusual for a group of people gathered together in a search of truth and getting into a very same direction and conclusions.
Before we end this interview, I would like to ask, is there anything you would like to say that I didn't ask about, or is there anything you would like to get out there? Or
yes, I would like to have focus on the Tusk's role in this, because to me as independent, that I see standing out that the politics in Poland are
You speak of Donald Tusk, former
yes.
Polish Prime Minister.
Yes, yes. And my question to him is, as I mentioned here, the first most important question is, how could he legally let this happen? How could he allow Putin to take this in his hands? How could this be in the Polish people's interest? We know now that this is an issue that is dividing the Polish people more than anything else. In this case, there should be the proper independent investigation, because this is the only way you can have the wounds heal. If you have lost somebody...
So you believe there's a new investigation should take place?
Yes, I absolutely believe.
A new Polish investigation or a new international investigation?
I think for the just of this, as Bogdan also has mentioned, there are the many good experts that can be pulled in, that are ready to do such work, that have the expertise. Put these people together in an international, independent, with full access to all data. Let them do the work, and then we will see the answer. Then we have a report we can rely on.
Dr. Gajewski, is there anything you'd like to say before we end this interview?
I just would like to thank Glenn for his work he's done to this case. And he's an example of the man who was completely outside of Poland. He was never, having any interest to get into the situation. But we see he's as a good person who's looking for just truth and justice to be done. And I think that's the best place to be here at the Parliament, European Parliament, because we expect that Parliament itself here will act in a goodwill of good people, not bad people. And that's, I think, is very important, that we should follow good people and not allowing ourselves that bad people will govern us. I think that's a conclusion out of it.
I would like to thank you for taking part in this interview today, and I admire...
Just one thing I would like to say in follow of this, and I'm very grateful, but I would like to also thank everybody working on this, because this is not only a matter for Poland. We have to understand this is important for the whole free world. We see by the cases also drawn to public attention today, by the Dutch plane being shot down, the Malaysian plane being shot down with the Dutch people on board. This is at the most importance for all people in the free world, that we get to the bottom of this, and this should drive everybody in this direction.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for taking your time again to be here with us today,
Thank you
and for putting yourselves out there, and for all your hard work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.